Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mike, another MLS updater, and today I'm going to be focusing on Inter Miami. I'll be speaking to Alex Windley, who's been covering the side since their expansion season, and they're in their third season as an MLS side this year. And it's been one hell of a ride down there. In sanctions, a number of players coming in and out, rebuilds every year. And this season, Phil Neville and his side have managed to overcome the odds of being considered a wooden spoon candidate at the beginning of the season to being pretty involved in a playoff push with 5 games left to go. Can they do it or not? We'll have to see. But right now, we're going to be speaking about their season so far to date, a bit of their history with Alex. Okay, so I'm here with Alex. Alex, thanks very much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Good, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Really good. Looking forward to chatting a bit about Inter Miami today. Can you let everyone know why you're a great person to be able to talk to the club about?
Yeah, I've been covering Inter Miami for their entire existence. Born and raised here in South Florida, avid soccer fan, played soccer. Yeah, I'm a kind of a natural fit to this, but yeah, it's been rewarding and whatnot. And yeah, if you want to read my writing, you can follow me at AAW_1998. I write for 5 Reasons. I cover the team for the Heron Outlet as well with the podcast. So I've got it all covered in that regard.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. That's great to hear. It's not been the best of recent weeks. 3 games with 3 defeats, and the last one against Chicago this weekend was a bit of a difficult one to take, but especially the one before that, the Columbus Crew defeat, with a sort of in the playoff race, giving it's difficult losing to a rival. But how are the thoughts around the club at the moment for going into these last final 5 games of the season?
Yeah, they're basically treating every game like a cup final. It's you do or die time. They really want to make the playoffs. After the off season that they had, everyone had them as wooden spoon material, but they find themselves in a decent position. They're still only a couple points off of 7th place, and it's still doable. But yeah, they're gonna have to win a couple of away games and the remaining games at home to be able to do that. So yeah, it's definitely cup final mode around South Florida for them. I know some fans are probably upset at what just maybe some aren't happy with Neville, and that's fine. He does have his criticisms and whatnot, but I think the large majority of the fan base, they just want Miami to just get into the playoffs, properly. Not the first year they did make the playoffs, but it was really a play-in round, but that wasn't proper playoff soccer. So yeah, it's cup final mode. Phil Neville has to. The players have said it, and they're just putting their head down and just ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, had them down as sort of wooden spoon candidates at the beginning of the year with so much upheaval, and we can go into that soon. But how would if they do finish 8th or 9th, let's say, and just miss out, would this be considered still a successful season, or is it? Seeing as how close you've now become to a playoff side, would it be seen as a disappointment not to make it?
Yeah, I think it would be disappointing. I know at the beginning of the season, Chris Henderson and David Beckham said they still want to be competitive or remain competitive, and I think Inter Miami did that, and I don't think they'd expect to be this competitive, fighting for a playoff spot. But yeah, I think if they've come this far without making the playoffs, I think it is a disappointment. But at the same time, they do have the sanctions going. They do have, you know well, for a majority of the season, the DPS weren't performing, and when I say that, it's mainly Gonzalo. I mean, as
Yeah.
of late, his form has returned, but I think it's more so of the personnel around him has gotten better with the addition of Pozuelo, so he's able to play better. But for large swaths of the season, I don't know if you remember when Campana came in and he was on that role, and
Miami with some good action here. Bryce Duke trying to pull it back for Campana. Marsman spilled it, and it's over the line. It's Campana. It's a hat trick. And Inter Miami might just have their first one of this season. They'll take it any way that it'll come.
Miami were playing better without their DP, so it's just been a really crazy season. But I think there would definitely be some disappointment because they've gotten themselves in position, and especially that last game against Chicago, where Chicago they didn't score in their last matches, and Miami have, looked better. So I think everyone was expecting maybe a draw, a win if they're lucky, but when they went up there and lost 3-1 and they didn't even play well, it did set off some alarm bells. So yes, I think it will be disappointing, but if at the same time, I think next season they'll be able to just retool a bit and maybe getting some fresh DPs, to fit what whoever's coaching, whether it be Neville or someone else, what they want to do.
Yeah, this like you say, it's been a crazy season, but I don't think that's not exactly any different to the whole of the time Inter Miami have been part of MLS. There's been obviously the restrictions you're now under with the roster compliance. And the players you can bring in, the restrictions you've got there, and there was so much change in the off season leading up to this year. The amount of players that left and the amount of players that joined. I mean, it's it's the numbers of a side that have maybe had 5 or 6 years in MLS, not 3. So it's been very incredibly busy, a massive turnaround. What's it like to be like such a young club, but still on, say, 3rd season and kind of like on their 3rd rebuild already?
I think, at the beginning, I think they just got too big for their britches, really. I think they bit off more than they can chew with, it was just really crazy with, the Messi, Cavani, Suarez rumors, and there wasn't anything concrete, heading back into 2019, 2020. So when the roster was built and, they basically built a roster before they hired a coach, and that's where it went all downhill. You look at other teams like Austin FC and I think even Atlanta, when they first started out, they had their coach before they started building, but Miami, they did the opposite way. And that would be fine if they had a sporting director that, was competent. I guess Paul McDonough really done over Inter Miami in that regard. Maybe if they hired Chris Henderson initially, it would have been a lot smoother. But they had to rebuild that first roster they did, and then this offseason they had to do a second rebuild, and it's just it's been a lot, but I think they're definitely on the right track now. They've got their stadium in Miami now, not in Fort Lauderdale. That's starting to start construction sooner rather than later. So I think, it's definitely been a lot of positives, and the team is looking up. But maybe this season is maybe a little too soon to have them perennial playoff members at this point. But it was a lot. But they've got to take it one day at a time, essentially, and just take it on the chin, really, and the sanctions will be over, and everything will pass eventually, and soon they'll get back to where they want to be.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously Chris Henderson's come in. For me personally, as the changes were being made, there was big questions over, does Phil Neville and the staff around him really have the know-how and the capability to build a roster? But they brought in Chris Henderson, who's had such great experience in Seattle, and he seems to be possibly one of the most important signings of everyone that's come through the doors. To have that person who can really manage the team from the sort of the boardroom level to say, we need to create our philosophy, we need to get these players who will fit, and he's worked with Neville, and it seems like they're getting him in has given you a chance to really identify who you want to be.
Yeah, and I think Chris Henderson, he's a former Miami Fusion player, so he knows the area. He's had a wealth of experience up there in Seattle, and he's done a lot of good. That Pozuelo move was probably the biggest one. Getting him a former MLS MVP on was essentially peanuts. Was one of the better acquisitions that they've made. Bringing in young guys like Bryce Duke, Drake Callender as well. Bringing in DeAndre Yedlin, which is a huge upgrade on the right back spot, which Miami has struggled with throughout their history. Bringing and drafting guys like Ryan Saylor, even though he's still a rookie, he's looked good when he has played. Guys like Jean Mata, he's slowly grown into one of the key players in midfield. Leo Campana as well, he's out injured, but during those dog days of summer, he really got Miami through some of those difficult roster moves. fixtures. And yeah, I think they Henderson has done a lot of good, and um, yeah, hopefully next season he'll be able to continue that, and I can continue to grow.
Yeah, it's interesting project for him. Is obviously so long with Seattle and being such a big playoff team every year of their existence. To try and bring that success to Inter Miami is going to be obviously what he's planning to do and why he's been brought in. And obviously, we've touched on Phil Neville as well there. Question like I mentioned, I had questions about him going into this year, but there's been some, and you've mentioned he has his limitations. But let's first of all go into like some of the positives. He took Higuain out of the lineup, like I mentioned. Campana came in and did well, and he's managed to bring Higuain back into the squad, and he looks a lot happier. We've seen. Now that Pozuelo's here, he's got that player that he can link up with a bit better, and he looks a bit happier.
Some goal, tries to slide in towards Higuain. Good ball, Higuain around the keeper. 2-1, Inter Miami. Higuain's got his brace. The flag stays down, and a beauty of an assist from Alejandro Pozuelo. The composure from Higuain to finish, and it's 2-1 to Inter Miami in the 37th minute.
But when others are scoring, he seems so much more excited as well. He's joining in the celebration with so much more enthusiasm than what he did at the beginning. And I think a lot of credit's got to go to Neville, I guess, for that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we'd all agree that Neville, he's done some good, but I think tactically he is sort of limited at times, and that's natural. I think this is his only first time full-time professional men's coaching job. I know he coached an English women's national team and was assistant to a couple other teams in Europe, but I think this is the first full time he's had a men's squad to himself. And his tactical limitations are there sometimes, but he's a really good man manager. He knows how to hype up the guys, and I think this is what the club needs more than anything. I think there is a time to get in that tactician, maybe later in Miami's existence, but right now going through the sanctions and the morale is low. You're bringing in a guy like Neville who can just rile up the troops. Really, has been good, and the players respond to it, and and they're playing well under him. So it's there's pros and cons, but right now Neville he's been doing a better job than what people have expected.
Yeah, I think obviously he's lost some big players. Lewis Morgan obviously went to Red Bulls. The DPs have all slowly just disappeared. Who haven't really worked out all that well for players like Pizarro, who had a lot of excitement when he turned up. It hasn't really clicked. Figal, Carranza has gone, but he's brought in players like Jean Motta and Yedlin, and defensively it really did improve the side. It was going forward, I think, at the beginning of the season that was the difficulty that you're having. Is that fair to say, do you think?
Yeah, for sure, because there was no real number 10 in the team before Pozuelo came in. Bryce Duke was doing a serviceable job, but he's still young and inconsistent at times, so that's unfair to put all that pressure on a 21-year-old who's still in his first full-time season as a starter, essentially. So unfair to him, and with Pozuelo in now, I think it's just better for the team. And yeah, you'd be correct. I think defensively, Phil Neville knows how to coach a defense. I will say, even though they did let up 3 goals the other night, but there were times earlier in the season, especially Seattle away, where Miami got a 1-0 draw. It was basically defend and counter the entire game. Robbie Robinson scored the game-winning goal, but that game showed that defensively Miami they did step it up with Damian Lowe and Ame Mabika back there. They were able to hold on for a point, which could end up being a pivotal 3 points in their playoff push anyway. So yeah, that defensively they have improved. It was offensively that was the poor thing going forward, and it was hurting because Gonzalo Higuain is one of the highest paid players in the league, and you expect a player like that to score some goals, and at the beginning of the season he just wasn't, because he didn't have that number 10 behind him, and that's when Leo Campana came in and they started to play a bit better. So yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult, but yeah, they've certainly improved goal scoring wise, I will say, with Pozuelo in there, and defensively I think they've kind of slid back a little bit. I think they need to get back to that what they were doing early in the season. But as a whole, it has improved.
Yeah, I think like looking at like the third goal that went in against Chicago, they're pushing for an equalizer and get caught. But there was points where you see the players tracking back and they weren't sure whether to press the player with the ball or cover the man, and eventually John Duran gets the run straight in on goal and the opportunity to finish. So it seemed like there was little bits there that they were just not quite sure how to defend in that situation, and maybe that's because they've had such a focus training possibly on their defense. Now Pozuelo's coming in. We brought in Corentin Jean as well, like trying to improve the offense, and maybe that's become a different focus to go and try and win the game. And there's still a lot of work to do to get these players fitting together. It is for pretty much all of them a first season together. It's going to be difficult to work through, and at times there was not too much pace going forward, which hurt getting the ball through to Higuain and became a bit predictable. For me, I quite enjoyed watching Ariel Lassiter play. I know it's not a particularly controversial thing to say, but I think he's been quite an exciting player amongst the team that maybe wasn't expected to be such a big part or to have such the success he's had this season. Is there anyone else around this side that you were thinking we weren't 100% sure about them coming in, but they've really stood up and become a vital part of the of Neville's side?
Ariel Lassiter is definitely one. I always root for him on Twitter. I think his skill set is important to have in the league. When possessing the ball and being technical doesn't work, you got to throw in a guy like him who's quick and fast and just can get in behind the defense. It's so important to have that. I'd say Drake Callender, I think heading into the season, he played a couple of preseason games and didn't look too good, but he was able to get back into form, and he's been, he was the starter until, he was benched for Marsman. It's not an injury thing. I think it's just something Neville wants more out of Nick, but, that's an entirely different discussion because Nick Marsman was he's on a lot of money, and you don't want to play have a backup keeper on that much money, and it's just a giant thing. So Lassiter and Callender for sure. I'd say those are the two, and Bryce too. But I think we all knew his quality coming into that this season.
Yeah, no, he's showing some really good flashes, especially. I mean, not as consistent because of his young age, and I guess now being able to play with Pozuelo and build his game that way will definitely help him in the long run and help into Miami, especially because looking at sort of the regular players who are starting, there's the majority are sort of 27 to 30 years old. So you've got a lot of players sort of in their sort of peak ages to be performing. So there's this. How is the feeling about where these players should be and the longevity of a number of these? Is there a sense of this is the team that we have to try and push for the playoffs, and we'll bring in some young players, or is this another step before another busy off season come December and January?
I do think it's half and half. I think they do have their foundation. They have their core. I do think a couple of players will be out this off season. I know Neville said that they don't want another off season like they had early 2022, which they got rid of 20 plus players. They don't want to do that every off season. I think they have their foundation. They have their core. Guys like Bryce Duke, John Mata, Gregory, Yedlin's locked in for a multi-year contract. They have their core. It's just getting in the right DPs to fit around that. You have Pozuelo. Pozuelo is an option to come back next season. Higuain's contract ends this season, but he does have an option. I don't know if they'll pick that up. He's 35 in December. Yeah. It'll be rough, but yeah, they do have some room for improvement, I will definitely say.
Pepita Higuain to keep Miami's playoff hopes alive. Steps, strikes, and rolls it with Svonina going the wrong way.
It's a good positive feeling about the work. Now we've got Henderson there. If Neville is continuing again next season, that they're making the right decisions with this roster to try and make this grow, or is there still a little concern with the like trepidation going into it after knowing what has happened each transfer window so far?
No, that's valid, but I think with Henderson, people are much more excited and looking forward to seeing what he's doing. He hasn't really missed on a player. Every player he's brought in has even if they're not quite there, like a guy like Emerson Rodriguez, maybe if he's not quite there, he has that potential. So, sometimes it's just getting acclimated to the league. A lot of them are not from the United States, so and getting used to this Miami heat and humidity, especially. It takes a while. Guys like Robert Taylor, Emerson, Jean Mata throw in. Next season, I think it'll be definitely better for them, and maybe guys like Bryce Duke. Just getting acclimated to being a full-time professional like starter. But yeah, I think next season Henderson will. Yeah, I think it's more focused on the DPs this time because Miami will have 3 open DP spots. Pizarro is not returning as far as I know. Higuain, he's up in the air. Pizarro, he's on 50-50 on returning, but he would like to return. So I think it's less of the TAM role players and more so Miami need to hit it on the DPs heading into 2023 because that's been the club's trouble, heading in 2019, 2020 with, Blaise Matuidi and, that didn't work out. And Higuain for a time, he didn't really work out. And Pizarro, they were all flops at the time. And, with Henderson here, you have a capable guy who knows soccer and will get the players that are, what Miami needs essentially.
So if we're looking at it as Pozuelo, say Pozuelo's the only one to return. Obviously, if Higuain leaves, probably that's where one of those DP spots will be used in bringing in another striker. Where else would you like to see a new DP amongst this squad? What sort of position do you think?
A winger, honestly, like a winger that can start every game, can create 1v1s, can beat defenders off the dribble, and can score at least 7 to 10 goals a season. Because Miami don't really have that. They have Lassiter, Emerson, Robert Taylor, Indiana Vassilev, but those guys, I don't think any of them have cracked 5 goals yet. All the scoring has been on Higuain and Campana, the center forwards, which is good, but having a winger to play off of that, just to be that potent guy off the wing, getting in behind or cutting inside. Maybe like obviously not an Insigne type, but something similar to that to play off the center forward. I like them to go after just an out winger essentially.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They obviously the defense. They have Viedlin, Damien Lowe, players like this. They've all still got a few seasons in them, haven't they? And are performing relatively well. So and obviously got plenty of experience in this league now that they'll know what to do. So yeah, it's getting those goals and trying to link them together. And do you see Phil Neville being able to do this next year? Is it someone who can be confident in, or is there a case of do we need to be looking elsewhere for someone with a little bit more of tactical nous?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I know Neville did recently get his green card, so I think that's a big indicator that he'll probably stay on next season. Plus, I think it would be unfair to bring in a new coach under the sanctions, and he or she won't have that capability to spend as freely compared to other teams. So I think that would be unfair. So Neville's already here; he knows what's the situation. One more year obviously wouldn't hurt. He's shown enough to warrant that. Plus, if he gets 3 DPs in, maybe including Pozuelo, that can help elevate the team, there's no reason not to. I think after 2023, that's where that people start to say, okay, no more sanctions. They're moving into Miami Freedom Park. Maybe they move on and get a manager that is a bit more tactically inclined. So.
Yeah, is there a sense now? Obviously, when the club started, you've got David Beck, who's such a big sort of personality worldwide, as much as a sportsman, and there was the excitement that the biggest names would arrive, and you could attract anyone you wanted to come to this club. And it's Henderson's been a little bit more practical, possibly. And is there a bit of a culture shift amongst the club now as you look to the next few seasons ahead of let's organise ourselves properly, not just on the names on the back of the shirt to sell?
Yeah, and I agree. I'd agree with that. I think that Henderson just wants some stability and nothing too crazy like they had earlier in 2022. They also want to push through some of the younger players through the academy. You have guys like Noah Allen, Edison Ascona, Felipe Valencia, who have first team deals. Harvey Neville, and obviously he's not an academy product, but he's played in the B team for a couple years, and I think that's their main goal, is to kind of push through the youngsters, and ultimately they kind of want to emulate the Union in that regard, in the sense that you're just bringing in younger players who have a high upside, really, combined with DPs who can help elevate that. And of course, you got guys like Lassiter and Taylor who are, in their mid to late 20s, to elevate that too. So yeah, I think it's just a combination of things that, Henderson wants, but at the end of the day, they want stability. They don't want, craziness, for every messy rumor, Henderson will go after a guy playing in the Colombian league who, people haven't really seen or scouted before. So, yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at things for Henderson, but I think it's the right direction the club is going in.
Yeah, so there's not, like we say, there's 5 games left now. 3 of them are at home against sort of playoff rivals, really, too, especially with Orlando and Columbus coming down to Miami. How, if I put you on the spot now, do you think you'll get that 7th spot? You're 5 points behind Columbus right now, so where do you think you can still do it, or you'll be happy if you can? But
I don't know. I think they'll win their home games. I think it's the away games that are difficult to predict, really. I think Miami have been one of the better teams at home, which is crazy considering last season that they weren't able to do that. So I think they'll win their home games. It's the away games that are the biggest worry. Will they be able to do it? I don't know. I think it's going to come down to the deadline day, honestly, against the Impact. I think Miami had, they lost and drew a lot of games that against playoff rivals, like, they drew FC Cincinnati, they were beat by them and drew them at home. And New England, they lost once, but beat them once. So I think those are the main 2 competitors. Columbus as well, they beat Miami once, and Miami have a chance to maybe get 3 points off them. So I think it really just depends. I don't know. I think it'll come down to the last day, but I don't think that they'll completely fold over.
No, yeah, no. It's been, I guess the difficulty you got is the goal difference as well. I think you're minus 13 at the moment, so it's not a case of drawing level. We need to make sure you get the points to get above, and so yeah, it's going to be difficult. But yeah, there's definitely, there seems to be quite a positive squad mentality now to actually go out and win games rather than to be sitting back and hoping to get something like the defense can keep it as tight as possible to try and find these set piece opportunities that Higuain seems to be able to put away with incredible ability. So Alex, thank you so much for joining me. It's really great to chat about the club. It'll be really exciting to see this last couple of months now going into it. Can you remind everyone before we go where we can find you on Twitter and your podcast and your writing?
Yeah, you can find me at AAW_1998 on Twitter. I write for 5 Reasons Sports, covering Inter Miami. I also co-host the Heron Outlet podcast, where we cover Inter Miami, talk about other South Florida soccer things. We do touch on European soccer a little bit. So yeah, that's where you can find all my content, all my writing and analyzation and thoughts.
Excellent, brilliant, and we'll keep an eye on how the club get on. Hopefully, maybe have a chat with you again should come the end of the season and going into the off season, all the changes that will no doubt be happening. Yeah, for sure. Yes, there will be changes for sure, 100%. Brilliant. Thanks very much, Alex. Thank you for having me on, Michael. Well, there we go. It's there's positivity around the club. There seems to be a slight shift in how they see themselves going forward, and Chris Henderson has been very much a key acquisition for this club to make sure that they can really start to build and go forward in a much more sort of pragmatic way. Thanks very much again for listening, guys. You can follow me at MikeRice1983 on Twitter. Please hit that subscribe button. I'm sure we'll be looking forward to seeing how this playoff race comes down to an end, and to see if Inter Miami can be there come deadline day. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.